Welcome back, guys, to the Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve, where last episode, our third case, the return of the Great Departed Soul, began with the Great Exhibition in full swing. However, an experiment in instantaneous matter transportation seems to have ended in a catastrophic death. With Ryunosuke having been banned from the courtroom after the last case of adventures, he headed to meet with Mel Strongheart to be able to practice law again, being granted this by the Chief Justice and asked to represent the defendant in the suspected teleportation murder, while we also wonder what is going on with Barok Van Zieks. And so we move along. It is nice to note, of course, though, in this room that the beat of the thing actually does coincide with the gears, if you look. Which is quite a nice touch. They didn't just put a tick-tocking kind of track behind it and make you wonder. So a new location has been added. Where to go to first? To speak to the person we're supposed to be defending, or to find out more about what's going on with Lord Barok Van Zieks? I want to check out his room, don't you? Well, that is tawdry. It's exactly as I expected. Oh, so this is the legendary Reaper's office. Yes, it appears so. It sends a chill down your spine, doesn't it? What an amazingly deathly atmosphere. Oh, is that... That hooded figure was so still I hadn't noticed his or her presence. I wonder who it is. What are you doing here? Ah! He's as unwelcoming as I thought he'd be. Actually, maybe even more so. Oh, I'm glad to see you well. I am. So, who's the person over by the wall being punished for something or other? No punishment is taking place here. Oh. That's my apprentice, and he's sitting there of his own free will. I didn't know you had an apprentice. The dark side. Anyone else thought that? Must be the same person who was pictured in the newspaper. He's very able in combat. A requisite skill for anyone under my tutelage. Are you referring to the attack on the Reaper that was reported in the papers? The Reaper? I'd be interested to know the Reaper's true identity myself. Assuming, that is, such a fabled fiend genuinely inhabits our great courtrooms. Interesting. You disown it, do you? Or more to the point, you actually think someone is to blame for everything else that happens after your court cases, is what I'm seeing here. Well, we could do some examining, we could do some conversing. There's a lot to check out after all. It really looks like a punishment to me. I've never seen someone sitting like that before. He hasn't moved a muscle since we arrived. Do you think perhaps he's dead? If he was dead, Runo, he wouldn't be sitting up, would he? Well, anyway, dead or alive, he's not overly approachable, is he? I don't think he's going to talk to us. He's not dead. But he's definitely not communicative. Look at all those ancient casts lining the wall there. Casts in the Reaper's chamber. Or are they caskets? You don't think... all those people who escaped conviction in court are lying inside them dead, do you? What ridiculous notions are going through your head, man? This is my collection of fine vintages. Oh, yes, of course. Thank you for clearing that up. Ruin and I were just musing to ourselves. Don't mind us, Mr. Reaper. I wouldn't, if you hadn't invited yourself to my office to talk nonsense with my earshot. There's bats here, too. Wah! They were bats! Yes, the Reaper's familiars, I expect. But what about the mute man in the dark cloak? I thought he was the familiar. Just not the flying kind. He must be a dear friend of Mr. Reaper, then. I think the familiar idea is more likely. Scary, though, either way. Checking out his room's quite interesting, though. Well, we got rid of the bats. That portrait really dominates the room, doesn't it? It's a very majestic outfit and pose, but sadly, whoever painted it didn't do a very good job of capturing Lord Van Zieks' facial features. Yes, you're right. I mean, it's not far off, but the artist has exaggerated his subject's handsomeness, I think. Ah, that reminds me. I heard Emperor Napoleon of France ordered artists to make him look more attractive when they painted him. How vain. That's really not an attractive quality in a person, is it? That portrait does not depict me. Surely that's immediately obvious. Oh, then who is it? Okay, you won't tell me for now. Oh, look, it's a scale model of the Great Exhibition Showground. That's amazing. I wonder why he's here. Perhaps he made it to take his mind off the sadness of being too busy to attend in person. Or perhaps he's too embarrassed to queue up for a ticket. Surely it's obvious that I'm using it as an investigative aid. Ah! You Nipponese have no business painting others as overly reserved. Ugh, I really didn't think he'd overhear that. That's everything on this section of the room checked out. Interesting stuff down here. Is that the transmitter? Dead body? Balloon? A trick took place by the looks of things? Hard to say. Lord Van Zieks' desk. Look, it's so stylish. And that's a marble chess set beside it. Chess? That's the Western version of our Japanese shogi game, isn't it? You know, I'm actually quite good at shogi problems. Oh, really? You probably like chess problems in that case. I'd love to challenge Lord Van Zieks sometimes. To a battle of shogi problems. If you only really want to challenge yourself, you can always do that on your own at home. A game of chess between the two sounds quite fun, though. Look at that fine collection of hallowed chalices and bottles neatly lined up there. My hallowed bottles are filled with the essence of the finest grapes and the finest vineyards I visit. And I personally oversee these chalices being made by the finest crystal craftsmen in the world. And that's why you break them all the time? And yet you throw them around in court like they were worthless. Yes, because this imbecile is so unimaginably and repeatedly wide of the mark sometimes. Oh, don't you mean you, really? Before you open your mouth next time, you should consider the poor artisans whose work you defile. So, it's my fault. Silly me, how could I have ever thought otherwise? Well, that seems to be having checked out the room at this point in time. So I guess we'll converse. Last night's attack. Lord Strongheart said that the assault last night was some sort of revenge attack. True, carried out by henchmen of Odi Asman's criminal organization. Odi Asman. The investigation meant their arrests were imminent. Presumably some hoped to kill me before that happened. Odi Asman. He's always masqueraded as one of London's most powerful financiers, a global investor, but his enormous wealth came to him by underhand means, by his criminal activities. And he used that money to buy himself a verdict of not guilty when he found himself in court, didn't he? Being prosecuted by you, Mr. Reaper. But the man got his comeuppance in the end. Yesterday, in fact, in extraordinary circumstances, was a most unusual cause of death. I know about that. It was super high voltage instantaneous kinesis gone wrong. Mr. Asman died when the demonstration on the public experimentation stage ended in an enormous explosion. Correct. And you think I have some kind of divine ability to cause an accident like that to happen, do you? Well, no, that does seem a little far-fetched. If this man really is the fabled Reaper, then he has to be innocent of this particular death, at least. It's strange how this has worked out, isn't it, Runo? I mean, what were you taking on the Professor's defense for the trial tomorrow? What? You're going to be defending him? Oh yes, that's right. Though I barely know the man's name yet, to be honest. Albert. Albert Harebrayne. That's right. Do you know him by any chance? Of course. He's a contemporary of mine. We were at university together. You're... What? I'd understood that Professor Harebrayne was from Germany, though. Harebrayne's from a respectable British family. After graduating from the University of London, he moved to Germany to carry out research, that's all. So you were students together? I was in the Faculty of Law, of course, and he in Science, so our paths rarely crossed. But curiously, we got along, though I've not met him since my university days. I certainly didn't expect our next encounter to take this form. And with you, of all people, representing him. Only if I make it out of this office alive. He's actually being charged with murder, it seems. Yes, I know. Because the prosecution will be handled by me. By you? But you made it sound as if you and the professor had been friends. We are friends, it's true. Then why would you do this? If the Reaper is the prosecutor, there's nothing anyone can do to save him. He's doomed. What's Lord Van Zieks thinking? Well, let's find out about the Reaper's identity then. What do you mean by what you said before? You'd like to know the Reaper's true identity. Does that mean... I'm a crown prosecutor and a mortal like any other. I'm no demigod. But they've all died, haven't they? The people you prosecuted, I mean. Whether or not the trial ended in a conviction or an acquittal. Those I prosecute are the vilest wretches of our society. People who without question deserve to be found guilty. The world is a better place without them. But that's not true of Mr. Natsume, for example. He wasn't a vile wretch at all. No, it was Guinea, in fact. She's ever so hard-working now. I can't deny that since I encountered you, things have taken a turn, but the point is this. If any of those vile wretches that escaped justice subsequently died in mysterious circumstances, it was at the hand of their own kind. It's not my work. Lord Strongheart said the same. He believes you're not involved in any way. But you were attacked by those ruffians because they believe it's true. The fact is, since people started to call me the Reaper of the Bailey, the number of serious crimes in the capital has dropped substantially. Oh! It would appear that even the most hardened criminals can be made fearful for their lives. Do you mean to say... I mean to say that if my pseudonym serves a useful purpose, I adopt it gladly, and with honor. But it's putting you in danger. You could be killed. If that is my fate, let God decide. Lord Van Zieks. That really all we're getting out of you? That ended somewhat abruptly. Of course, sometimes it does, but we usually look for fourth conversation options. So let's ask you via evidence about this. Lord Van Zieks, about the article in this paper. Ah, yes, it seems there was a reporter nearby when that little skirmish took place. I had no idea I'd been photographed. It was careless of me. It looks as though it was taken after the people who attacked you had run away, though. Rest assured, the police have already apprehended every last one of them. But there's someone else fighting alongside you, it seems. And I think it's the same man who's sitting over there as we speak, isn't it? As I mentioned already, he's my apprentice. Perhaps you could tell us a little more about him. There we go. He's in my tutelage to become a prosecutor. So you could say he's my apprentice, I suppose. Ah, like you are to Hurley then, Runo. I don't remember taking an apprenticeship with a great detective. He's currently compiling a report about last night's attack. It looks like he's wearing some kind of mask. On Lord Strongheart's orders, nobody knows the man's face or indeed his identity. Why would you agree to take on such a clearly suspicious individual? Lord Strongheart's orders, again. He's not one for meaningless follies. There will be a good reason for his actions. I hope you're right. The Phantom of the Opera is here. Have we already done that? Ah! The task is complete. Good. In that case, you can collate all the briefs. Nice to meet you. Back to work again. That was really strange, though. I've never met the man before. I didn't even know he existed, and yet... somehow it didn't feel like our first encounter. Don't bother trying to converse with him. He says nothing to anybody from outside this office. Lord Strongheart has strictly forbidden it. Oh, I see. Why are you so interested in my apprentice anyway? Oh no, I mean... sorry, I didn't mean to... The way he stood there so casually, yet with that flawless posture. It couldn't be. Ah, yes, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. Oh, what's that? That Nipponese man, is he faring well? Sorry? The one arrested twice in succession 6 months ago. With the stoop, and the mustache, and the jitters. Ah, Mr. Natsume, you mean? I'm not sure he'd be very pleased to find out you identified him from that list, Runo. He's fine, thank you. In fact, I received a letter from him by international post only the other day. I see. Well, I think we can end our discussion there, don't you? There's little time left before tomorrow's trial. I advise you to spend it investigating the case. Yes, thank you for the advice, and for the conversation. I can't believe he's asking after Soseki-san. After a Nipponese. I'm not sure whether to feel happy about that or worried. I never imagined that Mr. Reaper would be friends with a mad scientist, did you? That's a turn up for the books. A mad scientist? Ah, you mean Professor Harebrayne? Yes, it might be worth quizzing the professor about his relationship with Lord Van Zieks, I think. Well, bye, I guess, considering we got chucked out that time. Farewell. I'm off to prison. Ah, cell 11. I was wondering if it was still cell 9 again. Warden said cell 11. That's this one. Oh, there's someone caught up in a ball in the back corner, look! What's his name again? Professor Albert Harebrayne, wasn't it? Excuse me, Professor Harebrayne? Who are you? I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo. I'm a defense lawyer. A lawyer? Ah, was it something I said? A lawyer, you say? Would you be here about the experiment? Are you going to defend my hypothesis? Your hypothesis? Sorry, I don't... Yesterday's demonstration! That magnificent demonstration was... It was an out-and-out success by anyone's calculations. But despite that... No one listens! No lawyer believes in the science. When it's explained, they will leave at high velocity. Now's probably not a good time to mention that your zeal made my concentration leave for a while, too. Well, let's chat to this guy with the interesting music. You mentioned the demonstration yesterday. The papers have called it a spectacular failure. After all, a man died in the explosion, didn't he? Ah! Yes, you could interpret the results that way if you really wanted to. Well, I suppose in the strictest sense, the experiment was a failure, but at the same time, it was a great success. You've lost me. I saw it with my own eyes, right there in front of me. Mr. Asman was spontaneously disassembled. Until then, everything was going exactly as my calculations had predicted. At that point, he should have been beamed to the Crystal Tower by instantaneous kinesis. However, the machine exploded and Mr. Asman, in fact, perished. Yes, I can't deny that part of the experiment was a failure. So what you're really saying is the large explosion that killed Mr. Asman was an accident, correct? But the bigwigs had you arrested on suspicion of murder. I was responsible for a man's death. That is the immutable truth here. And for that, I wish to be punished. At once. But... Murder? Never in a million years! It was an accident. Simply an accident. I see. Hurley and I were talking this morning, you know. He said the situation would change completely depending on whether it was treated as an accident or murder. How exactly? Well, if it really was an accident, then the professor's machine would be kept in protective custody. On what grounds? Ah, yes, it's newly established here in Britain. The Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. That one passed me by. But if the case is treated as murder, then they'll say my machine was the murder weapon, and they'll be able to pore over it as much as they like. If they examine it in detail, they'll find out how it's made, and then they'll be able to copy my idea. My precious hypothesis will be stolen. The machine must be protected from that at all costs. That's why it's imperative this whole incident is shown to have been an accident in tomorrow's trial. Ah, I see now. So it could be a way of just nullifying all of your work and stealing it by government. So in short, there was a terrible accident at the Great Exhibition Showground yesterday. Yes! Or rather no, the devil is in the details. Strictly speaking, there was a terrible explosion. Sounds the same to me. You were demonstrating super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, weren't you? How fascinating. Humans, like all matter, are made up of particles that are held together by electrical bonds. So it must be possible using a sufficiently high voltage to break those bonds and beam the particles through space. That's it in a nutshell. That's my idea, you see. That's my amazing hypothesis. Gosh, that unimaginably high-level science. That is. Oh, but dare to imagine it. Dare to dream of such incredible technology. Just think, one moment I could be here in this cell, and the next, I could be at the Great Exhibition again. Well, yes, that would be incredible. And the next, in the mere blink of an eye, I could be at a great partisan theatre, say, or Parisian even. The possibilities are endless. The whole of our vast planet would be within reach. So, no more hiding in wardrobes on rocky seas for 50 days. I don't really see it like that. What do you mean, Iris? Well, if you could travel anywhere in the world instantly, the planet wouldn't really seem vast anymore, would it? I think it would feel like it had shrunk. My word, that's exactly right! What are the implications? What does this mean? Oops, that's got Professor Bunnybrain really worried by the look of it. Clearly, this is yet another case of just because you can doesn't mean you should, I suppose. Just think, teleporting troops. Ah! The point is, my calculations are flawless. The science works. But without a practical demonstration, it means nothing. And that's always the fly in the ointment. Because practical demonstrations cost a lot of money. Money that young scientists like you don't have. That's exactly it, yes. Freddy's always complaining about it. He says the government should invest more in science. Well, anyway, I bumped into him at the right time. I met the well-known investor, Mr. Asman. The victim who died in yesterday's terrible accident, you mean? Okay, we've got the victim, but we've also, before that, got the Reaper's varsity years. I understand Lord Van Zieks is a friend of yours from your university days? Yes, that's right. He was studying law whilst I was studying science. What was he like back then? Oh, good question. Unassuming, gentlemanly, an all-round nice fellow, really. Sorry, I think you misheard me. I'm talking about the cold-hearted, merciless prosecutor Barok Van Zieks. What was he like when he was at university? Talk about a leading question, Runo. As I said, an unassuming and extremely pleasant gentleman. After all, he is the little darling of the Van Zieks family with all its great aristocratic origins. I didn't realize he had quite such noble blood. Little darling? It was a bit of a shock when I came back to Britain and learned what he'd become. The Reaper of the Bailey, no less. Yes, that's right. I did hear, though, that there was a very big event in his life that completely changed him after graduation. Really? What sort of event? I'm sorry, but I don't know anymore. I wasn't in the country at the time. I was in Germany already. Oh, yes, of course. If he's heard all about the Reaper, I really don't have the heart to tell him that Lord Van Zieks will be the prosecutor in court tomorrow. Right then, so let's hear more about the victim. The full name of the man who died in yesterday's accident was Mr. O.D. Asman, wasn't it? What exactly was your relationship with the man? He first visited me in my laboratory in Germany a year ago now. He said he wanted to invest in my immaculate hypothesis. I thanked my lucky stars. I see. So you hadn't really known each other until then? Money for scientific research. I'm so envious. As far as I was concerned, the man was an angel. Oh, really? An archangel, even. He was prepared to fund a practical demonstration of my hypothesis for presentation at the Great Exhibition. And if that went well, I could expect additional financial support for my research from the British government. Mr. Asman provided me with money and an exceptional engineer. He produced a machine to my precise specifications. But then your dreams were blown to dust in one enormous explosion. As you can see, I owed everything to Mr. Asman. I would never, ever have thought of taking the man's life. Well, he seems genuine enough. I don't think he's lying. So, Professor, let me just make absolutely sure I've understood you properly. The huge explosion that occurred yesterday, that was an accident, you're saying? You had no intent to harm the victim, who was in fact the sole investor in your work. Is that correct? As correct as 2 squared is 4. I swear it! Yes, it's true that the man perished in a machine of my invention. So I know that I'm far from blameless in all of this, but still, I would never use my discoveries, my inventions, to take a person's life, not in a centillion years. I'm a man of science. It's all I know. You have to believe me, please. Do you believe me? Do you believe in my hypothesis? Science is the pursuit of truth, you know. I've always believed that all my life. I'm afraid I don't know much about science or your theories, but I do believe you, and I will fight to prove your innocence with all my might. I'm a man of the law. It's all I know. You have to believe me, please. When I went to live in Germany after I graduated, I learned something very important. Nationality, class, lineage, none of that matters. As long as you try your hardest, you can achieve anything. Thank you for that, Professor. And thank you in advance for defending me tomorrow in court. All right, Runo. It's time. Time to visit the Great Exhibition. Sorry? Well, that's where the incident happened, isn't it? Yes, I suppose that's true. Time to investigate at last. So, of course, we will investigate, but that movement over and investigation of the Great Exhibition will take place next time on The Great Ace Attorney 2 Resolve, where interesting characters have been added to our show, so to say. Where hopefully we learn more about them and about a certain masked man, an apprentice of the dark side of the prosecution in the future, which I hope you'll join me for next time. See you guys then. Bye-bye.